We are back here with Vincent Goodwill, and we are going viral. On Monday, the Raptors celebrated their first championship in team history, but they wouldn't have made it to this moment without Kawhi hitting the only series-clinching shot in NBA history. Now, take a look at the guy who was behind Kawhi, Jordan Lloyd, on the right. At the Raptors parade, he wore a T-shirt that said, "Random guy in a suit."
So people know he's the guy from the picture.
That's amazing.
Standing behind Kawhi, guy on a two-way contract. That's awesome.
Amazing.
That is.
Well, he'll never, ever forget that moment right there.
That's great. And that parade was on. Canada did the parade right, man. I know there was a little skirmish. I'm not worried about that. There's that many people.
Just a little gunfire. We're used to that.
Listen, man, you get 2 million people together, you're going to have some gunfire. Come on.
All right, let's talk about the Rockets. According to your report, Vince, Chris Paul has demanded a trade from Houston, and his relationship with James Harden is unsalvageable. Vince, with the Warriors in flux and the Lakers far from a finished product, are the Rockets blowing a chance to win the West with this discord?
Blowing a chance would be actually doing something and doing something damaging. I'm not sure they have the roster or the style of play that can win in the West. And Nick, I know we go back and forth on this. I just don't know if James Harden's style is conducive to playoff basketball. I think you need more people who are capable of making plays, and during the regular season, you need to build better habits. But just from a talent standpoint and a where this team has been standpoint, yeah, they're blowing the chance because we don't know what the Lakers are going to do. I don't know if I can trust Rob Pelinka to build a championship team, even though they've been gifted Anthony Davis, even though they've been gifted LeBron James. We don't know what Portland is going to do. They could have maxed out. Golden State, we know what their issues are. This is a golden opportunity for the Rockets, even despite the turmoil that they have. Championships are often won amidst turmoil. The Lakers, we've seen that. The Bulls, we've seen that. So all these things that are happening, the reports that have come out, what I've written, that doesn't affect anything necessarily on the floor, what can happen next season, 82 games in the playoff run, if they choose to put all that stuff aside and put it together.
If they decide to break up this team, to me, I'm a little bit different than you because I think that they've already blown an opportunity. That being when they had the best record, when they had home court, when they had the Warriors without Kevin Durant. So for me, I'm not going to say they blew 2 opportunities, but let's just combine them. They had a great opportunity. We didn't know Toronto was going to come out the East. They could have defeated Toronto with that style, and then we wouldn't be having that debate as far as James Harden, the coach, will that style win? But to me, they've blown at least 1 opportunity given the way the league's changed. Just take a snapshot. 8 weeks ago, today, the league is totally different. And as you mentioned, we don't know. Did Portland max out? We don't know Denver. They lost to game number 7 at home. They can't say they got a bunch of confidence, a bunch of young players. We don't know where they're going to go. They need to try to come back. The best Houston team is probably the team that we saw, that because now Capella got better, because Golden State's not going to have the Hampton 5 to deem him unplayable at a lot of times. So I believe this would be a big mistake in breaking this team up, because you're not going to get something for Chris Paul's contract. That contract is ugly. Right now, who would you rather have, Chris Paul or John Wall? You take Chris Paul by a little, because Chris Paul's more valuable to Houston than anyone else because their window is still open, and their window is right now. And I disagree with your premise, and because I think your premise is flawed, because we saw this team not only be up 3-2 on the Warriors in the Western Conference Finals, but we saw them be up 15 points in a Game 7 at home. If you were going to say, because they didn't win that game, because they didn't win that series, they can't win a championship, that is like saying the Buffalo Bills couldn't win a Super Bowl because Scott Norwood missed a field goal. Everything is the same if he makes that field goal. Nothing about them systemically is different.
This is not coming down to a field goal, Nick. When you look at the way that the Houston Rockets have systematically, late in games, they have broke down.
Against only this one team, and that team is gone now.
Insert team here. When the pressure happens, James James Harden does not play well late in games. Did he play well in the fourth quarter of that Game 6? At home, whether it's against Golden State or anybody else, you have an opportunity to win, minus Kevin Durant. So you can't say a more talented team. You can't say a team that was more well put together. They built that team to beat Golden State.
But the fourth quarter of Game 5, he did, and it was Chris Paul that was 3 of 14 in that game. Listen, is James Harden as good in the postseason of the regular season? No. Is that a fair indictment? Yes. Does his style work better over the course of 3 different teams in a week than 3 games against 1 team in a week? Yes. Does that mean they're drawing dead to win a title? Absolutely not. And what the Rockets have going for them, if they can weather this storm, is all 5 starters under contract. They will have the taxpayer exception to spend. Unlike last year, they will go into the tax this season.
Do you believe that they will go into the tax? I don't believe that they will.
I would bet any amount of money I have they will go into the tax this season. The point was to avoid the repeater tax in 3 straight years. Once you ducked it last year, you now can go into the tax at will this year and next year and be fine. So the Rockets should go into next season right behind the Lakers, in my opinion, as the secondary favorites in the West.
Well, the only way they can be the second favorite is you don't believe what he reported. Well, if you don't believe that Chris Paul hates him, because it's hard to come back from hate.
Well, I don't listen. I think that I don't think the relationship is worse now than it was at the tail end of last season. And last season they were right there. So I think you can be professional and you can work together.
But now that we got all this information, were they really right there? Because the team wasn't that close.
Does it come back to the style? Like, you bring up the style, and obviously this is not Mike D'Antoni's style. It's predicated on the incredible efficiency of James Harden in isolation. So that's why they have been playing the style. The question keeps circling back to, can it work in the postseason? Do they change? Is that part of salvaging this relationship to lean more towards what Chris Paul has been asking for? And can you actually take this team and make them as successful with changing the style and mitigating some of what James Harden does on a nightly basis?
I think it's hard to ask a player like James Harden, who's had so much success being this way, to change the way that you're playing. 30-point streaks, an MVP, maybe a second MVP this year, depending on how the voting turns out. You're asking an MVP to not be an MVP. And here's the thing we are discounting. No Jeff Bisdelic is coming back. They were last in defense before they brought him back. He's not coming back this time around. You have to be able to fix that defense, Nick, moving forward. And Mike D'Antoni single-handedly does not seem equipped to be able to do that.
But they're not going to leave that coaching spot vacant. They will hire someone that they obviously believe can do that. Four of the 5.
What power does he have to do that? Because their offensive system, they don't practice a lot. So there's a number of other things. It's hard to put in a great defensive system when your system is, we're not going to practice a lot.
And then, here's the thing, Nick, there are great teams who have small, minute championship windows that just don't get it done. The Sacramento Kings, the Phoenix Suns of Charles Barkley and Kevin Johnson. It's no indictment. Sometimes you just come along at the wrong time.
And there are great teams that would win championships, could win championships, but can't get past the greater team. The day after the Rockets season ended, I sat right here on the show and said they will never beat the Warriors. Doesn't matter what they do. Doesn't matter. They are drawing dead against this team. It is not only a talent, it seemed to be a mental block that shows up against the Warriors. The Warriors are gone now. And so just like the Raptors could not get past LeBron.
The Warriors were gone when Kevin Durant got hurt.
No, they weren't, man. That was the same team. Steph and Clay were the team that had beaten the Rockets the 2 years before KD got there. They were the team that had beaten the Rockets in the Western Conference Finals in 2015. The team that had beaten the Rockets in the first round in 2016. The team that had beaten the Rockets in 2018 with Kevin Durant. Like, it's... Now that the Warriors are a different team, to act like the Rockets have to do some major overhaul in order to be right there, I do not agree with.
If Chris Paul had a more favorable contract, would you be saying trade him?
Of course.
Oh, okay. So
I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm just not saying they're drawing dead. I would try to trade Chris Paul as is. But I wanted the Cavs to trade Kevin Love because I did not think he was in a good situation for what they're trying to do. It didn't mean if you don't trade Kevin Love, you're drawing dead for a title. These are different discussions.
So, Nick, you told me that they have a mental block against the Golden State Warriors, right?
Yes.
So if they're playing in late May against who you claim to be the greatest player ever, there would not be a mental block there?
You wouldn't have the history of repeated failure. I'm not saying...
Yes or no, Nick?
A mental block?
Yes or no,
No,
Nick?
you can't have a mental block in someone who's never beaten you. But I'm not saying I would pick them to win the title. But who are the list of teams that can win the title next year? Are the Rockets on it?
Nick, we haven't gone through July 1st yet. Half of the league is up for free agency.
Okay,
That's
there
way
we go.
Too early
Exactly.
to say.
I actually did ask you a yes or no question like you did me. I didn't hear an answer. They're not? Okay.
You're not going to trap me there again.
Hey, let me tell you guys, it's not a debate show.
I know.
All right?
Vinny, thank you for being here. Great suit. Coming up, could Zion and RJ Barrett be teaming up in New Orleans? That's next on First Things First.